Well, it is day two, and exciting things for all of us here in Outranking. We're doing this a little bit different than usually. It is an accelerator about prompt writing, but this is also a part of event is the release for Outranking, and that is the next release, version 10.1. Super excited to share everything that we've been working on.
Okay, so we'll like we went through the simple prompts yesterday, and we looked at some examples of how do you get to some structure in your outline, system structure in your content, and then going all the way down till introductions and generating maybe some simple types of paragraphs. And well, simple types of paragraphs are great because if your input or if your prompt is very simple, not specific, it'll just give you that like a definition. There's not like 1,000 ways you can write a definition, or you can structure a question which is gearing towards a definition. But there are many ways you can take an argumentation, or you can take compare and contrast with a conclusion going towards a particular product and things like that. So it gets now into the nuances of how I can use natural language to not only do research but to write content creatively like a copywriter would. So that's what we will cover in this session, and let me get started with sharing my screen, and then we'll look at some practical examples in outranking. So these are some of the complex prompts that we're going to look at. Well, they're not really complex, but many people wouldn't get it. Like, how do you really write this? And then there are things that you can do on top of this examples that I'm about to present to make it even more personalized, and do things certainly your way that you're trying to do, or writing it for a certain persona or a customer that has a specific brand style. Like, all of that is possible if you provided it proper instructions. So what we want to look at in this session is pros and cons writing ordered and unordered list of like writing a process analysis. So like if you're writing how to change a tire, or even in changing a tire, how to get the bolts out of the tire, you're writing that specific process analysis of something. How do you do that? So mostly steps. Then writing service or product page description, which are fairly simple. Writing features and their descriptions or specifications, which you do for many e-commerce related blog pages or product pages, or comparison types and things like that. The second one is comparison. This many people use it. Comparing is very bottom of the funnel type of keywords. And then there are ways you can present this data in tables or spreadsheets or list format or whatever that is. But many of you've been playing around with ChatGPT, and you probably already seen that like it can come up with some decent tables. And then lastly, we'll learn how to adjust your prompts and build confidence when writing this prompt. We'll show some examples as well. So how do you write a pros and con? What do you consider to be a good pro or a good con? Don't think that this tool is giving me something free and it's great and I can do these things very easily, but it often lacks depth. So for example, if you write pros of, let's say, HubSpot, or pros of Active Campaign, or pros of tons of CRMs out there, you could write 1 pro, 10 pro, 30 pro, 50 pros. What is that fine line? And whether you have sufficient data to back up the pros that you're about to build. That's all going to be objective. So when you go to ChatGPT and you type in give me 10 pros of HubSpot, you are limiting its ability to think and say, hey, I don't have 10, but I only have 5, which is quality. At the same time, if you do only 5, then it might exclude 7 or 9, or however many that were there after that. Right? So that's always going to be in question. But you're going to have to do the research for pros. You're going to have to bring in the data for cons and pros, and then ask it to creatively write or narrate this in whatever way you want. Like, so that's the actual process when it comes to Chat GPT. Now, let's look at how you can do this in Outline. So we're here and we want to write some pros of Active Campaign. So this process is essentially going to be the same if you go to ChatGPT, with a slight exception. You are going to have to feed the background research which supports all the evidences that will go into building out the pros of Active Campaign. That's the thing, and that's where majority of the time is going to be spent, because the rest GPT-3 or any AI tools can do it very well. So let's look at this. How would you do this in Outranking? There's a couple of ways you can do this. You can add arrow and it becomes a prompt, right? And you can run a prompt. So let's run this prompt and see what it gives us. All right. So it gave us 4 pros of ActiveCampaign. And it also started writing it into the history where you can see where we got the information pulled out from. Right? If you enable the sources, you would also be able to see sources. And there we go. We're doing the factual research in the background, and we're coming up with this background information that we can use to write the prose of it. So that's what exactly we did. And this time it gave us Fry. It has Chrome extension, reporting feature. It's affordable. It's a free account. They have a free account migration and strong deliverability. Those are the pros of it. Right? And this is the background details. This is the background data that we got for this particular topic. Okay. Now, how do you be consistent in terms of writing this prose for each product that you are going to be mentioning in this particular blog post? Right? So let's go and undo this. You can say write the list of pros. I could say write the list of 3 pros or 5 pros or 10 pros, and then it will try to pull out only 3 or 4 pros of it. You could also say write 3 most important prompts, right? To be more even consistent with what you want to get in terms of output, you could say write the 3 most important pros of ActiveCampaign. It will analyze the entire text because it's not reading one line at a time to interpret this thing, right? Like it's reading the entire passage or entire background information to be able to say how you should be able to generate this prompt. Right? That's exactly what it's going to do. So we can say like the list of 3 pros of ActiveCampaign and explain each pro in detail. Yeah, all right, so we already have the prompt built out and we can run again and it will give us 3. There we go. It gave us only 3 and it will try to, not separate information from what it needs to be, and it will try and stay close to it. And it brought in the 2 sources that we could find this information in, right? Great stuff, right? So you can use this for generic content in ChatGPT-3 as well, right? It's only trained till 2021, so it doesn't have the most current data. But you could still use this same technique or same prompt with variations that you have for your product pages. So these are some examples that you can use, right? The templates, right? We'll put this in a blog post as well, so you can just copy and paste it. But writing X pros of product and explain each pro with 2 sentence description, write in a tone for audience this, right? So it's really conversational. And what you do need to keep in mind is that you want to give it all the instructions that you can, but you don't really have to mind all the language and all the language lingos that goes behind it. Right? It's okay to make certain mistakes, have spelling mistakes in it, right? And it's okay. It can figure out most of these things by itself. But you can create a list of, a prompts that you use on consistent basis for the kind of blog that you use. So you have the style cohesiveness going into, all the content that you create. Similarly, you can write cons of a product and explain each con with 2 sentence description. So the reason why I added 2 sentence description is because, again, I want to be cohesive when I am presenting the information so it's easily digestible by the audience. I want to write it, I want to try and write it as much as the same length or with the same concepts that every product is talking about or every little detail that's been mentioned on the blog page, so that it's more user friendly, right? And it's easier to scan through the content and know exactly where to stop and where to keep reading through the things. But you can absolutely include tone, and you can also include the audience. Many times we don't have the audience, right? But we have the background research, or if you're writing with GPT-3, it already kind of knows who this audience might be based on the feedback that it provided or background research that you have provided, right? So it automatically knows some of these things, and you might not need the audience, but you can be a little more specific by giving it the audience. So let's go look at the second one, writing unordered and ordered list. Now, this is something that I do on consistent basis. And I do it over and over again. And I'd probably even merge it with certain other concepts to kind of present the information in the way I want. Right? So let me go and present first view here. Okay. So these are some examples. Let's say write a list of something in an unordered list in the tone of someone for a persona or the audience, right? Or you can literally spell it out and you can change these things around a little bit as you'd want. Audience. Then write a list of something in an ordered list. Now, like, when do you use unordered list and when do you use an ordered list, right? So if you are writing an ordered list, it would be something like a chronological order, right? So it doesn't essentially have to happen in an order, but it's the list. You're presenting a list, right? It's not changing. So you could say things needed for changing a tire would be an ordered list, right? No, these are the list of things that I need, and I don't need anything else. It's the list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how you'd write it. And you'd see feature snippets often reflect this. If you are writing an unordered list, so like list of ingredients that you might need, like 10 reasons why people do horrible at prompt writing, that's an open-ended question. For that list, it could be an unordered list because the order of it, or whether it's 5 or whether it's 10, that's rarely the matter of the case. So you can use those differentiations when you're writing different types of content to ask it specifically to give you an unordered list or an ordered list. Then you can write a list of something in a chronological order of events too. So, for example, if you were to write, let's say, the history of SQL database, or the history of OpenAI, or all the releases that OpenAI or Outranking has made so far, like that would be a chronological event because it happened in a set of events, right? That took place. So you can tweak your prompts and add this terminology into it, and you will get those kind of specific outputs. Let's look at one of these things, the list item that I showed currently, and we'll use a little bit of active feedback to modify this and regenerate it as well, right? So we're writing a list of unordered list. All right, let's write a list of features of active campaign in an ordered list. It's a very simple example, and then we'll use some active feedback to build upon this prompt and do a better job. It's doing the background research, right? So it's unlike ChatGPT. It's not just going to look at the data that we get. So it kind of pulled out lots of features, but each of these features don't really have a description. If that was something that you were looking for, then I'm just giving active feedback. So accompany each feature with a 2 sentence description. Oh, that's very easy. Or a second variation of this would be, right. So they both work. So they're both trying to convey the same thing. One maybe more grammatically correct than the other one. It's okay. It can still figure out some of these things. And if you want it to be more specific, you can say write a list of 10 features, or like write a list of 5 features. And it can do that. It can do just that. So that's what you want to do. And you can run the prompt over here. You can also copy this. You can start running a prompt from here as well. So you can easily take it back and forth into whatever content that you are trying to paste this in. This is something that I prefer, where I just give it a prompt and then it generates the answer for me. So I write the list of active campaign features in an ordered list, accompany each feature with 2 sentence description. Great. Well, it only wrote 1 sentence, which is okay. I can adjust the other one, but it also wrote all the sections with only 1 sentence in it, which is okay. I can try again and I can run this for 2 sentences. But this seems to be sufficient for me to go about and build out the remaining part of it. If I want to dig deeper into this and understand more of these details about the feature, I can read this through and add anything that it was missing out. But we have the source. If we have the source, we know how to present it better than the AI did. Okay, let's go ahead and delete this. Accompany each feature. Okay, got it. All right. So now let's use some more active feedback and build this out a little more further. Let's say in 2 sentences. Or let's say evaluating, let's say ERP or CRM, right? So evaluating a CRM. And now we have the persona in it as well. And you can feel free to use some tone elements in it as well. But this will give you what you need in from a perspective of a small business evaluating a CRM. Right? So it's not just listing any general type of information, but it's being specific to having it written for daily tasks, like small businesses looking to save time and money by automating the daily tasks. So it's talking about that. And this time because I provided a little more context, it knows what more it can write around it. It even gave us 2 sentences. Perfect. All right. This is what you want to use um, for building out some of your sections. You can copy this prompt, right, and paste it for every one of your sections, and then tweak the product name for it and then run it together. Okay, let's go ahead and delete this. And we'll look at some more information. Now, let's go to writing process analysis. Right? This is most likely going to be for everything that you do with how to. And I will address all the questions so I don't want to get distracted by that. Writing the process analysis is something that you do for all the types of how to's you write. Like That's how do that build out. Basically, you are doing the analysis of how the process came about, whether it's changing the tire or whether it's, you could even use it for how to evaluate a particular product when you're giving the steps of evaluating the product or a service or things like that. When you say process analysis, it really tries to write the analysis of how the process came about instead of writing all these other things that are probably not going to be relevant to the step. You want to be very focused. So this is like writing an individual step. The first point that you see over here is about writing an individual step, how to upgrade your firmware, right? And your first step in upgrading the firmware would be checking which version of firmware you currently have. That would be step one. You would write that. How do you find out the version of your firmware is where you do the process analysis. Now, you can also use process analysis to build out the steps, right? Number, steps, process with elaboration of each step, along with 3 expert tips per topic. Now, this is where we made a slight adjustment. We're writing not only the steps and explanation for each step, we're elaborating that, but we're also going to write 3 expert tips per step. And we're going to write this in tone of someone demonstrating the process to someone. I'm not going to do this. This is very simple one, works almost every time. I want to show some more advanced ones. So we'll get going and then we'll look at service or product page description. Again, many times, right, like you can use this in any tool, and not saying outranking for more SEO, but you can use this format in pretty much anything that you're using, right? The service, feature, or product description of blah 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 offered by company this. Then write an unordered list of 3 key benefits of using company for this service. Very simple. It will give you the same structure that it will give you for all the paragraphs or all the services or all the features you're going to describe on that particular page in the same manner. That's what you want. You want to create a template, take it, modify it till you get the perfect output for the first one, and then replicate it for all the sections that you are currently having. Let's look at a little more advanced version of that. Write the service description of a service, right? Like service product or whatever that is offered by a company. Then write an unordered list of 3 key benefits of using company for service. Like I'm asking it to do a secondary task, which is not only to write a description, but then create an unordered list of the benefits of using it. And then I'm asking it the third thing from it, to write the description to address A, B, and C issues faced by persona. Like, see how specific you can be. Like this services you can replace with whatever, but here you can include a bracket and add these 3 elements that you wanted to address when building out this service description. Right? And you want to write for that particular persona in a certain way. Right? This can do a lot of it. Like, okay, now let's look at writing comparison, which is my favorite one. Okay, these are some very simple ones, and we'll write this using this active campaign one as well, and we see what we can do with it. Right, so write a comparison and contrast between A and B. Well, what will it do? Let's look at this. I think I already built out. No, I did not. Okay, add a prompt to it and run it. So now we'll see what it does, and based on that, I'll explain what it just did. All right. So this is my compare and contrast. Let's go open up the difference between this and see how many URLs it generated probably. So it got the information from 2 URLs. If you had more URLs plugged into it, it'll probably get it from the more URLs as well. It's also getting into the bits of the pricing. That's insane. So it's writing a compare and contrast. So it's first, second, third, and fourth. Right? It's going to have what's similar with both the products and what's different for each category. And that's how it has built out this entire paragraph. It's very classic way of writing a comparison between 2 products. It's not extremely data oriented. It's more sort of copy oriented when you're building out paragraphs like this. So how can you be a little more data oriented? We'll look at some of those examples as well, and we'll look at that. So let's look at this. Write a comparison and contrast between A and B for feature and suggest why A is better for someone or something. Now, this is leading. You're asking the AI to go research the information that compares and contrasts between A and B for the features, And you can list the features too if you wanted to in a bracket. And you can say specifically go and evaluate these two features and then suggest why A is better for someone or something. Let's look at this example. Okay, so write a compare and contrast between HubSpot and this top four features and just why choice for businesses. So I'm using this active loop again, right, and being more specific, asking it to only compare top four products and then suggest why, Active Campaign is a better choice for hubs for small businesses. Now, what it will do is it will find this data, but it will evaluate the data from a perspective of a small business, right? So it's going to try and list the features also that are more cohesive with small business. You can see, all right, this is what it did. So it wrote concisely 4 paragraphs and it told us why it's a better choice for small businesses. It's going to mention many things inside of this as well that makes it ideal for small businesses. If you wanted it to compare pricing per se, you could ask it to compare pricing, and then we could say landing pages. I'm telling it to just compare these two features. I don't want to compare everything else, or just compare where to go. Okay, it works. I'm not going to look at the English and modify this properly. Not going to spend 10 minutes on just redoing 2 sentences, right? That's not the point. Get it to something workable condition and then start creating the prompt, running the prompt so you get that output that you need. Great. There we go. This is how you'd go about doing factual writing, by guiding it to exactly what you want out of the content. And you can verify all of these details, right? Absolutely, because we know the sources of this, right? And the information where we have gathered this data from, right? So it's easy to verify and change anything it missed, right? Might have misinterpreted things. Perfect. Let's go and delete this. We can do some more testing. Okay, all right, let's go back to this. And then we're going to go next. Okay, so you have this 3 comparisons, right? I wanted to throw in a fourth one, which is very creative, right? So writing tables. You might have seen that GPT is able to write tables in many cases. Sometimes it will not, sometimes it will. It really depends on whether how it's feeling at that particular time. It's not consistent. It can sometimes do the tables. It sometimes might just present the information in, separated by comma, or just presented by separated by 2 spaces and things like that. So you want to be a little specific when you're writing tables, and specific as to a sense where you're telling it to separate the columns by this particular icon. So this bar icon, where the first column is a list of features of the product and the second column is the detail of the information. Like you're telling it exactly how to build the table. That's exactly what you want. Second, let's look at this. Write a comprehensive table of comparison between A and B. Write 3 columns. First column listing the features, second column information about A, and a third column information about B. And the columns must be separated by this particular symbol. Let's take this example and we'll fit this example into our prompt and see what it can give us. So writing comprehensive table between A and B. This is my A. This is my B. And this is my B again. You can simplify this, simplify the prompt by not having to mention the product so times and things like that. You spend a little more time crafting your prompts, but this does a dirty job really well. Okay, so active campaigns, right? Okay, and the columns must be separated by this. Like, so I'm being very specific as to what I want to do. Okay, let's run the prompt. Insane. All right. You can even ask it to, I'm going Control Z, but you can also ask it to give you not just 3 features or 4 features. You can ask it to give 10 features. You can also actively tell it to go compare only the features that you exactly want out of it. And then it will go find information about that and drop it in here, like in a systematic order that makes sense. This makes total sense. And it's taken from 4 URLs. If you have more URLs in part of your background research, it can pull out from as many as 20 URLs. You can understand the data from that. But this is how you'd build out a particular table. Let's go back to this, and I want to show this last example where you can be creative and you can really use this tables to do a lot of things. Like you're creating a feature and specification table, feature description table. You're evaluating why, let's say for this example, why one should visit in Milwaukee as a one-day trip from Chicago. Most people would just mention the things to do in Milwaukee and what places to go maybe and why they should visit Milwaukee. You can go an extra mile and you can say, give me a one-day planner of activities in Milwaukee in form of a table to see the attractions and time to spend per attraction that someone can copy and paste. And this information is going to be analyzed from the research that we read through it. So it's going to have all the right information that you need, with some exceptions, but it will present that information in such a way that is value added on top of what your SERPs can do. So the main agenda was, right, of crafting this complex prompts and writing with prompts is that you want to be able to use the source of information that you have and craft something which is more useful, which is better reading, which is more detailed than what's already out there as a single source. If you are able to do that, then you're providing tons and tons of value. A person reading your blog post will stay on your blog post because it has all the important information that he or she needs. That's the whole agenda behind creating this complex prompt. So happy to take some questions, and we'll show a few quick examples of what you can do with outranking prompts, right? Let me delete this. And this is a new feature that we've just launched, but you can also, okay, so I have 2 prompts. Similarly, you could have 100 prompts in your document. The reason why we have this multiple prompt thing is because you're going to have sections. And once you've figured out how to create this first section, you want to replicate that success through all the sections that you have. So you can copy and paste these prompts into those individual sections and then run both the prompts together. It will build out the table first, and then it will build out the alternatives. Okay, it's still running the prompt, and it build out that as well. There we go. So you can use multiple prompts in one document and create this entire thing. Like let's say it was like a service page. You could create a template for yourself, which is related to just a service page. You bring it in here, change the parameters, and run the prompt. If you have a listicle, like you bring that prompt in here, like you bring the template in here, and then you run it again. So depending on your niche, depending on the audience that you serve, you can create your own templates and keep it as a benchmark that you can use again and again with any of this content that you're trying to create to be cohesive. Okay. All right, I am pretty much done here explaining all the complex writing prompts and how you can use this. You can use the same techniques in any tool that you are using. Mind though that we pull in background research and we have tons of data to support everything that we are writing, and it's easy to cross-verify this with links and information we got. Versus other tools, if you're using them, you need to go and verify the data because this hallucinates more often than not if it does not have background details, and you will need to do those fact checking and ensure that you don't lose credibility to the boards.
Awesome. There are a bunch of questions about what you just mentioned. Does Outranking use data more current than ChatGPT 2021?
We can use data from today, like literally I'm talking about today. If we were to go and find something which is a little more complicated, right? Let's say pontoon boat for fly fishing. Like you can try this, okay? With any of the tools that are out there, I'm gonna give you a product, go and find all the information about that particular product and write it. It's not going to be able to. While we can, because we can read the product that will launch on Amazon today, only a few people talking about it, it's okay. We can still find the details and we can still write around it, provided you have the right background research. We pull in 20 pages, but there are ways you can pull in more data, and I will also show those enhancements as well as part of this release. So, okay, let's go look at the outline. And what is a pontoon boat? Let's say some factors. Pontoon boat, best pontoon boats in the market, right? All right, we're gonna talk about this particular pontoon boat and see what ChatGPT can give us. Right? So I have ChatGPT open and we'll see if it can give us something tangible. Oops. All right. Oh, this was very easy. I was figuring it'll hallucinate and it'll give us something crap that we have to compare. But what I can do now is I can go here. Let's delete all of these details out of it. And we will say, paste, write 10 features of this and explain each feature with a description. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's not looking at the title when you're writing the prompt, right? It's looking at the prompt example to itself. Although when you generate the first draft, it's looking at title and all of these other things. But writing a prompt is prompt to itself. Now, don't get it confused with all the other things that you might find on this particular thing. This is very different. Either look at this, like this is already aluminum floor. It's also describing the inches and the diameter, how many lbs it is, how many feet it is. It swivel seats and highly height adjustments of how many inches. This is insane. It is not, it is impossible for ChatGPT to do this without some form of research or semantic research in the background and then pulling that out and making sense of it, right? All of that. And the best part of this is that we did not just grab this information from anywhere. We grabbed it from 4 sources, which was unstructured data. We structured it and we present it to you in the format that you wanted it without any problem. This is the background data that went behind it. So you can see that it's talking about 13 inches. It's talking about 47 inches over here and aluminum floor. Like this data is not presented in the way that it's presented over here. It's totally restructured, analyzed with all the 4 pages in mind to come up with something that is tangible.
While talking about sources, here's a question from Margit. I don't really understand how it works with the source URLs. Where do this come from and how does this compare to ChatGPT?
Okay, so here in Outranking, you have the ability to control the source data. We pull in 20 pages from ranking, like you can use definitely that. But what we have some built some additional utilities that allow you to bring in additional data. So you can click on when you're in the outline, you can click on background research. And if I'm writing about that specific product, and I did not use this product to get more details out of it, right? But if I was just evaluating this particular product and I want to get all the details about this particular product, right? Like which does not exist on SERP, I can click here and it will consume 1 keyword credit, right? It will go find 10 pages related to this and it will add it to the background data. So when you are running the prompts, right? It will automatically be able to understand in any of this like 20 pages which paragraphs have dense information related to this particular product. It will curate that research automatically using semantic search and then help you write creatively around it using prompts. So we're reading through information that's currently ranking out there, right? So we have an understanding of what this is, right? We've added like 10 more urls to this, right? So now you can use a variety of sources to source information from automatically and write around it, right? Like, but you can provide it a little more guidance and say, you know what, I want to write factual. So it's able to write based on the feedback that we give it. And we automatically give it feedback whether you give it or not. So it can write information which is current because no matter what, we'll still find some current data out there that we can use to build information from. Let's take a step back and I'm going to go to prompt. I'm going to open this up. And how would you write this particular feature for this particular product? Like, what would your process be if you were to build this out? You'd open up a few pages, you'd find information about this particular product, you list it together, then go to probably an AI tool or do this yourself. You will rewrite that information and only take what's essential out of it and create a structure out of it and like then finalize the content this automatically by writing a prompt around it and asking it to figure things out on its own. So if you look at the background research that we had when we generated this detail is right here. And the way this is narrated and the way this is presented is totally different. So you can see it's not just rewritten, it's reconceptualized. Like it's thinking about how to write this topic from top down, bottom, right? It's not just taking existing information and just like, adding a few synonyms to it and rewriting it, right? I want to keep the facts. I cannot rewrite 300 lbs. It needs to be written in a certain way. Right? So it writes that, but it does this transformation of data into something that is more meaningful than what's already out there. and not just from one source, right? You can rewrite from one source, and you can do that probably in Quillbot, right? But this is not rewriting from one source. Like, but you can add as many pages as you'd want, and we will not summarize them. We will go find the most dense information on each of those pages, curate the research into a block of unstructured text, and you can see that unstructured text in research. This is my unstructured text. We got it from 3 URLs, right? And then we reconceptualize it and rewrite it around it. That's how any human would do it, and any manual process would look like as well, is to go about finding the right details and finding a way to present it better than what they have individually. I'm not just looking at top 5 pages, right? I can look at 100 pages, not just in the ranking column, but Amazon pages, I don't know, Quora pages, or whatever you'd want to feed in. You could feed in. You can even feed in your custom research. You can come to this particular screen, right, delete, and paste your custom research if you wanted to in here as well.
Are there any plans to add any automation to prompt building?
Like, so there is some sort of automation right now that we build out, right? Build out these features in a progressive manner. But if you look at the automation that I was suggesting right now, right? So let's go and do this. Okay, these are 2 prompts, right? So let's say you have all your prompts in, right? Copy pasted every little section or whatever, right? Might have even section here. H2, let's see, H2. You can build out this prompt and you can run the prompt, and it will run the prompts for both the things. So this is some sort of automation right there, right? You can craft all the prompts that you want to run together. We will actively go find information for, related to each of those prompts from the background, and then find the details and write around it. There we go. It wrote this, and then it will write the second section as well as we progress through this. Ta-da! There we go. Now, what is the workflow? So what we have done in intern mode is that we have prompt writing. When you click on the prompt writing as a default, right? When you are in outline, the next, and I need to verify. So this is your ideal workflow would look like if you have prompt writing enabled. And what it will do is it will take you straight from your outlines to the editor, right? Where you can start working with prompts and you can start writing with prompts over there. So it's not building out the first draft. There's possibility you don't want to build out the first draft, but first drafts are great for first paragraphs that you want to build. Then you can add additional value using this prompt. You just don't want to do everything related to prompt, because every prompt will need to be adjusted a little bit by topic. And any sort of automation that you are trying to build on top of it will not be cohesive unless your prompts are cohesive. It's the nature of AI right now that you cannot build something so cohesive every time. That's why the output that you get from AI one time, it's different than the other time. Like, that's why that's the case. You want to have some form of manual plus automation involved in here in order to do this. And the automation that we've given right now is allow you to execute multiple prompts. Once you have all the prompts set up in the page, you can just run one thing, go get a coffee, come back, and you'd have a full draft ready.
Awesome. We are at exactly 1 hour mark. We're still going to take a few more questions. I want to address this one question. I like the idea that you can test Outranking for $7 for the first month. Are all the features there to do what you have done today? Yes, so all the features are there, Sebastian. For all of you who are not currently testing Outranking, there is a $7 plan for the first month that is currently a promotion. So go ahead and check it out. It is only $7 for the first month. There are some other questions. What would you suggest using ChatGPT versus Outranking?
Like, so it depends what you're trying to do. If you're trying to write blogs, outranking, definitely. If you are trying to do creative writing for social media, for emails and stuff like that, product page, like only doing product pages or writing summaries and briefs to present, where your manager is going to review it, things like that, you can totally do that in ChatGPT. It's really good. ChatGPT is really good at conversations and having a conversation and giving you feedback around things where facts don't matter, research don't matter. Where facts, research, authenticity, depth matters, you'd want to use outranking for that specific use case, which is SEO related content. Everything else, you feel free to use like any tools that you use for creative writing. The only thing that you're going to have to remember is that Outranking cuts majority of your time short by finding this background research. And let me tell you, this background research that we find is not a piece of cake to do. Like, we're not just matching this particular Equus heavy duty 1 series FM and finding the related details from a page and bringing it out together. Consider this example. When you're writing a comparison between HubSpot and MailChimp, for example, how would you curate the best possible research out of it? We put that thought process behind it. So when you write a prompt which says compare HubSpot versus MailChimp and list 10 features and compare those 10 features with it, the ideal way in you'd want to do the research is go find features of HubSpot, then go find features of MailChimp, and then come up with a collection of that data and then create a spreadsheet or the information that you're seeking out of it. We do this in the background by identifying the intents and how your prompt is structured automatically using again AI, and then going and grabbing information, whether that should come from one source or 10 source, or we sometimes find even more sources. We'll curate that research so that when you're writing it in the most comprehensive way, so the user doesn't have to go to some other website and find out about paddle oars or aluminum floors mentioned in some other page. You're writing all of these details in a cohesive way, transformed manner in Outrank. So you'd want to use Outranking for anything factual, anything that will have your reputation behind your back, and anything that's creative, short, can be used for multiple purposes or creative purposes, social media purposes, things like that. With ChatGPT, ChatGPT killed it for everybody. All the the minor tools out there that are doing creative writing is no longer essential. Like, you could use that, but for specific use case of SEO, you need a specialized tool that can do a lot of this other thing. So if you were in yesterday's session, you would have also noticed that I showed you how you can create outlines. And I also mentioned that how your outlines cannot be at the mercy of AI, because it will not use data as part of the background. And that means that this heavy lifting of giving it data, curating data, and then coming up with the outlines is an extensive process if you were to just do it with ChatGPT. If I look at this is an outline that was built automatically using Outranking. Well, can it get better than that? Yeah, sure, with a little bit of human touch. But now, no AI is going to be able to do this unless there are logics, there are other parameters that are passed to it to make it specialized to this use case. So our outlines, like, I'd suggest, like, you try out our outlines. If you haven't done anything, try outlines first, so you'll understand the depth of details that we take into account when building out this information using AI.
Are prompts using the background data, or we can ask whatever we want in one document?
You can ask whatever you want in one document, although every prompt that is executed will use background data. So if you ask it to write, statistics about content marketing, it will see if we can identify any data around that. If it doesn't find it, then it will do the creative writing and give you what any other tool will give you. So you'll not be left out with empty, but it will do that. Yes.
Can you summarize credit consumption for the prompt workflows?
It's same as writing first draft. It is same as generating key points. Right? It's using background data plus the output characters is what you're being charged on. So nothing changes for any of the prompt consumptions. This specifically only relates to people who are on add-ons and LCDs. So nothing's changing over there. It's just using background data like it was before and doing what it was doing before. And this does not apply to all the monthly subscribers. So yeah, don't worry about this.
Jonathan asks, let me see. How can we know if it would be better to make a question or section into its own document? How do you know
This
when a
is
question should be a standalone article, basically?
this is very different to writing an article itself. And I will probably not cover this in detail, but what you need to do is probably have a strategy, clusters that you established, a plan that you established prior to starting to execute this content that you're writing. And we have a tool which is a topical authority tool, Strategist, where you can upload it 20,000, 50,000 keywords and ask it to group it into the keywords which are distinct in nature and clusters around the same idea. so that if you focus on that cluster, right, like you're not cannibalizing the impact of other content that you would write with other keywords. But it's a very in-depth discussion on how you'd go about building that strategy, and you can do that with strategists.
Looks like a newbie question. Where would you suggest to start using Outranking? Here's the onboarding page. Check it out. It has all the resources, all the links to the weekly sessions, additional information about product documentation, which is going to be updated videos for you to get started. Keep in mind that the videos have not been updated with prompt writing. That's why we're hosting this session right now. But other than that, all other videos are updated. There's also a link to a YouTube channel and previous accelerator recording. Few people ask about how do you make the prompt writing work with different languages?
So like you can pretty much type your prompt in pretty much any language and it should work. The language you type, the language is what you get. But many times people forget that they are in English and they're trying to write Spanish, so don't do that. If you're writing Spanish, make sure that you select the language Spanish. That way we can nudge all the models that we have towards writing about that language and creating research using that, for those types of NLP terms. So do that and everything else should be fine.
I think that is really it. Go and check out if you're not a current user of Outranking, but you're interested in ChatGPT and using ChatGPT for long form SEO content like blog posts. Check out Outranking. We know that ChatGPT is powerful. There's lots of use cases, but creating blog posts is not one of them. That is what Outranking was created for, and that's why we keep updating Outranking with additional features that are going to be helpful for you to achieve that. So check it out. We currently have the $7 promotional plan for the first month.
We've also added like a few utilities to add multiple URLs and stuff that I did not show. And it's a very small enhancement, but it is a very powerful one that many of the people who've been using Outranking for a while will find it. In your background data, we've added the ability to add multiple URLs one time, right? Before you had to add one, wait, add one, wait. Right now you can, right? Like you can add multiple URLs and click import all the URLs. So you can literally paste a list of URLs if you have as part of your background data as well now. That's about it.
Yep. I think that's it. If any questions, do let us know. If you are not sure where to start with Outranking and how to use it for your particular use case, check out in the onboarding page that I shared with you. We also have a link for you to schedule a demo. So go ahead and schedule that if you have a particular question about it. If you are a marketing agency, also check out this onboarding page because the recording that we had there at the very end is specifically for, I would say, more geared towards the marketing agencies. So check it out. And I think that is about it. All right. Thanks, everyone. This has been our pleasure.
Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful weekend.